Well, good morning, Jean and Lydia.
Good morning.
We still have our participants rolling in for today. It is an amazing crowd that we're going to have. And it's just nice. I don't know if our participants can see it, but it's just nice to see the number keep going up on participants as people are logging on. So I hope you had a wonderful morning, ladies.
It's beautiful today. Birds are singing. Flowers
Yes,
are starting to
shining.
The birds are singing.
Lois,
It's always a beautiful day.
I'm starting to take pictures for you of the flowers I see around campus so you can put them up on social media.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
My favorite.
I do really like. I so love when I come in the morning there, and you do hear a lot of different birds, and it starts my day.
Yeah.
You know, I walk in, I'm happy already.
Yeah. We're very fortunate to work at such a pretty place.
Yes, we are. So it looks like we have about 60%, 70% of our attendees. So maybe I'll start with, I'm going to start with a little trivia. I love trivia. So, you kind of fall into a routine, and the other day it just came to me like, what, this Kendal name, where did it originate from? Like, where did this come up with, Kendal? So I'm going to read just something really briefly. It says that the name Kendal was chosen by its founders to recall an English town important in early Quaker history, and also to honor the 17th century Kendal Fund, which provided philanthropic support to early friends who traveled in the ministry. And that makes such sense. So it was a town very important where the Quakers were in England, and it provided hospitality and philanthropic help to Quakers who, that are called friends, who traveled in the ministry. So I think that is such an awesome name for this. So
I never heard that before.
Yeah. So that's our little trivia for today. So I want to start with saying that I think that I call it the triple crown of life plan communities, which the triple crown encompasses the three most important aspects that people who are looking to move to a life plan community, or are looking at various ones, the three main items should be your staple, that if you can check off that those three satisfy what you're looking for and are solid, then you can start to explore the rest, all the little details that follow. So what is the triple crown? The triple crown to me is the financial stability of a community, it's the culture of the community, and it's the quality of the wellness program and healthcare. So that is it right there. Listen, I think Kendal checks all those boxes. And today we're really going to focus on the financial stability. I always say, when a resident moves in, they want to know that we're going to be here for another 20 years, right? And the next day somebody moves in and they want to know we're going to be here for the next 20 years. And how does any entity, able to project that? And I think that Jean is going to really show you how well-footed Kendal on Hudson is. So with that said, Jean Eccelston, our tremendous CFO, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Lois, so much for that. I don't know if you can tell now, you've made me all embarrassed. But good morning to everybody. Welcome to our presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the finances. So I'm going to actually share my screen. If you give me 1 second. Can you enable the screen sharing for me?
Sure. Exactly. That's a question.
I love technology. It is like our friend, and then at times it's like, oh, it's not our friend.
I know. So just bear
We'll get
with
there.
me. One panelist, host and panelist. Okay, try now.
Ah, there we go. Okay, so let me get this going from the beginning. So here we are today to talk about the financial benefits of a life plan community. Just a few sort of housekeeping items that I'm not sure if you're aware, but please keep your mute button on. There is the ability to send both a chat or a question through the Zoom, and Lydia will be moderating that. We'll answer questions at the end of the presentation. Is there anything I forgot, Lydia and Lois, on the housekeeping part?
Nope.
I forgot to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us when we opened up. So pardon me, but it's wonderful to have you here. And, you know, we have people here with us, Jean, from all over the country today.
Oh, wow,
So,
really?
Yeah, so there's your benefit of technology right
There you
there.
go. That's true. That's very true. If it's okay, I'll take a few minutes just to introduce myself a little bit more. So my name is Jean Eccelston. I am the CFO here at Kendal and Hudson. As I was putting my remarks together, it disturbed me a little bit to admit that I have over 30 years of experience in the finance arena, with over 20 years of experience in continuing care retirement communities or life plan communities. So I grew up in New Jersey. I live there. Went to school in Pennsylvania, worked for KPMG out of college and Ernst & Young, some significant hospital systems, and got a lot of experience both on the audit side and on the provider side. And moved to Florida and worked in Florida for 16 years as in one of the largest single site communities in the country. And then made my way back north to Kendal on Hudson. And I couldn't be happier, frankly. I missed the seasons. You know, Florida is lovely and beautiful, but you know, spring is my favorite time of year. I actually love the snow. People think I'm nuts, but I'm really enjoying coming back and having 4 seasons again. So it's been a really good transition for me. So in the 5 years that I've been here, we've done some really good things from a financial perspective. We've kind of rebuilt the foundations of our finance department and our finances. Our occupancy has grown significantly in all levels of care. And I'm going to share what that's resulted in. You'll see some slides as we go through the presentation about where we are financially. And that is, as Lois already alluded to, is one of the most important questions that you need to be asking if you're considering moving into this type of a community, because we need to promise and you need to have peace of mind that we're going to be here for you in 10, 15, 20 years when you need us to be here. So with all that said, let's see if I can move this forward. What to talk about? What is Lifecare? Like, what are we really talking about when we say you should move into a Lifecare community? And what you're really doing is you're purchasing a prepaid long-term care insurance policy. So you could buy one of those through Aetna, MetLife, you know, a different insurance provider, and it would give you some coverage, some financial coverage. So we do the same, very similar thing, but we're also giving you the housing and the socialization and the really important parts of aging in a community. So New York is actually one of the most highly regulated states for life plan communities. We are regulated by both the Department of Health, that makes sense, because we do have a healthcare component. And then we also highly regulated by the Department of Financial Services. And actually, I think I always have heard this joke that the only other industry that's more highly regulated than CCRCs is the nuclear industry. And I'm very glad to know that they are so highly regulated. I thought I would share just a little bit of information. Why are you doing this? One of the biggest things, or one of the biggest answers to why you would purchase a life plan contract is it provides asset protection. So the cost of medical care is so expensive, and Medicare does not cover long-term care in any kind of assisted living or skilled nursing community. They cover certain things at a skilled nursing level, but really, if you're in a nursing home for custodial care, or if you're in assisted living, that's not covered by Medicare. So you have to pay for that privately, and the costs are skyrocketing. In 2020, I think the cost of purchasing home health services increased by over 15% since 2020. There are nursing shortages and caregiver shortages. So many of you would be able to stay at home and pay for care at home. But what happens is then you're responsible for making sure that the providers are coming, so all the home health aides are coming. You have to provide coverage for sick time and vacation. And it's actually becoming more and more difficult for people to do that because there's just not enough people. When you move into a community like Kendal, that responsibility becomes our responsibility. And one of the things that you should be thinking about is how long will you stay at a community and at what level of care? So we have several levels of care. We have independent living, we have assisted living, memory care, and long-term care. The average length of stay for assisted living is roughly 2 to 3 years. The average length of stay in memory care is roughly 2 to 3 years. The average length of stay in long-term care, our skilled nursing component, can be anywhere up to 2 years. So the cost, which I'm going to share with you in another slide, can really, really be significant. So what you're doing when you purchase this Lifecare contract is you're actually controlling or making those costs more predictable, and you can preserve your assets in a better manner. I'm going to get to the next slide. Here we go. So just to share some information, here's an example. This is the cost of living here at Kendal. If you were to live in a 1-bedroom apartment, if you were in assisted living, you would pay $86,800, memory care $86,800, long-term care $86,800. As you can see, your costs don't go up depending on the level of care that you're in. But if you were to pay privately for these types of services, you're looking at any range from $125,000 a year to over $260,000 a year. That's quite significant. And when, again, if you're thinking about how long will you be paying for those services, averages are 2 to 3 years in each level of care. So you want to be thinking about how are you going to preserve your assets in an environment that's really a little volatile and is, the cost of healthcare, as you all know, is just growing and growing and growing. So how do we do it, and what does it mean to you? I'm going to talk a little bit more detail. There's really 3 components of our fee structure. The first two components I'm going to talk about are the entrance fee. Those are one-time only fees that you would pay when you moved into our community. And in that entrance fee, there's actually two components. There's a residential component and a Lifecare component. We're going to talk a little bit more detail about the Lifecare component because there's some tax benefits to you when you purchase this contract. So I'll show you more as we get to another slide. The residential component of the entrance fee has two different options. You can purchase a non-refundable residential component or a 50% refundable residential component. And I have a slide. The next slide is going to talk about some of the pros and cons to that. And then you have your monthly service fee. So the monthly service fees range depending on the size of the unit that you're living in and the type of contract that you purchase. They can range from anywhere from $4,600 a month to about $9,500 a month. And the important thing, and that's for one occupant. If you have a second occupant, that amount is roughly $2,700 a month or $3,000, depending on the type of contract that you're buying. So what happens is that those fees do not change as you go through the continuum of care. So whatever your fee is for your monthly service fee for your independent living unit, it follows you into assisted living, into memory care, into long-term care or skilled nursing. And the only increase you ever see is an annual increase that we do for cost of living. And so you're not getting charged those fees that I showed you earlier, these rather large fees that can get up to about $260,000 a year. You're instead paying the same fee no matter where you are. And that's the insurance component of what we do. It would be remiss of me to not mention, included in the monthly service fee, there are some additional fees. If you have an extra car, if you have a car, there's a parking fee and there's some cable fees. And if you're asking for specific services, there's sometimes fees associated with that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the refundability. And remember, this is going back to the slide where we talked about the residential component. There are two types of plans. You can have a non-refundable or a 50% refundable. And what that means is if you purchase the 50% refundable option, that when you pass away or when your contract is terminated, your estate will be guaranteed 50% of the entrance fee will go back to the estate. And it is paid no later than 30 days after resale of your original independent living unit, or 1 year. So it will never go more than 1 year because we're always going to, that's the law in the state of New York. We're always going to pay the refund within 1 year, but it could be paid earlier to your estate. And there's pluses and minuses to doing a refundable contract or a non-refundable contract. And it really is specific to every family situation and how you want to leave money for your estate. So some people like to know that they have a guaranteed refund that they can leave to their children or their grandchildren, however they've structured their estate, and they can build that in and they can count on it. Other people like to, look at the refundable option and kind of say to themselves, well, maybe I could make more money in the stock market and leave even more money to my children with the non-refundable option. There is a difference in the entrance fee and monthly service fee prices between those two options. So you have to look at the cash. You have to look at how much your outflows will be. Many of our residents here are well versed in the investment community. So they choose that non-refundable option. With the changes in the interest rates that have happened right now, when we had very low interest rates, it might have made sense for people to do the 50% refundable and get that guaranteed income. Now people are kind of looking at that non-refundable and saying, I think I can do better for my family if I choose that option. So we can talk about that individually if that's something people want to discuss. We can't give you advice on it, but we can kind of explain a little bit more about the pros and cons. It is very specific to what people want to do. As we've started selling just these two options, we've seen people leaning more towards non-refundable than the refundable over the last 2 years. Okay. Some of you will have long-term care insurance already that you've purchased, like I said, through like an Aetna or a MetLife, or maybe it comes through your retirement benefits. There could be many ways that you've purchased a long-term care insurance policy. And the question we're often asked is, should I keep it? And unfortunately, I can't answer that question other than to say right now, it depends. We would have to look at your insurance coverage to see what it covers, because many long-term care insurance policies have provisions for home care, which you can do here if in your independent living apartment, you can actually get some home care. And if that's reimbursable under your long-term care insurance policy, you really want to consider whether or not you should cancel it. So that's something that we do talk to residents and prospects about in a lot of detail to kind of make sure that they understand again, the pros and cons of what you're doing. And now we get to talk about taxes. So there's actually some tax benefits to purchasing a long-term care. I'm sorry, to purchasing a life plan contract and moving into Kendal and Hudson. So the Lifecare fee, I'm gonna scroll back for a moment. Remember, we said there are 3 components to the fee structure. So this Lifecare fee here that we talked about is fully deductible in the year you pay if you are itemizing your taxes, your deductions on your taxes. So it is all cash basis because that's Uncle Sam's rules. Those are not my rules. But if you pay for the Lifecare fee in a particular year, then it becomes an itemized deduction on your taxes. It could be pretty significant. And there's actually, I'm going to advise people, if you are contemplating this, to please talk to your tax advisors, because there are some things that they can structure from a timing perspective. If you have any capital gains, or you might want to take advantage of this large deduction, realize some capital gains, and then offset them with the Lifecare fee. So you do want to talk to your tax person if you're going to be moving in. And then, so that's the one-time only entrance fee component. And then every year there's going to be an amount that is included as a tax deduction on your taxes for your stay in independent living. So it changes every year. It's dependent. There's a lot of variables. Some of the variables are, the age and gender of the people who move in a given year, the cost of providing healthcare. So if that goes up, the deduction often goes up. It doesn't often go down, but it can go up. And last year for 2022, if you were single occupant, you received almost $23,000 as a deduction in your that you could claim on your taxes. And then if you had 2 people, you got an extra $9,100, so you're almost at $32,000 that can be deducted if you're itemizing. And every year we send a letter to all of our residents in January, usually towards the end of January, letting them know what the tax implications are in a given year. So this is sort of the timeline, the recommended or timeline that most people will follow. Before you start the process, you want to kind of make sure that financially this is something that's affordable to you. And there is a financial calculator that we provide that you can use to do a high-level calculation. You have to, of course, select an apartment. And, we're right now, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but our occupancy is very high So there's only a few apartments available. So you actually want to try to get in as fast as you can. There is a application component. You do have to meet both a medical underwriting and a financial underwriting in order to move into the community. And that does require a good bit of documentation that we will need from you in order to do those underwritings. Once you sign your contract, there is a 10% down payment that must be made. And this is the really cool part, I think. Lifecare begins upon signing the contract. So, God forbid, if you signed your contract and had some sort of catastrophic health issue and needed to move into our skilled nursing or long-term care community, you could do that. You have to pay the balance, but then you're guaranteed Lifecare. So once you sign that contract, if something happens to you, you're guaranteed care in our community. And that's a really big benefit, I believe, of signing the contract. You have the opportunity, we have a lot of standards that we do in each apartment as it turns over to make them upgraded and pretty. And then there's some things that you can also customize. There's a short time frame to do this because we do have to keep people moving through the community. So you have roughly 30 to 60 days, depending on the apartment that you're picking. And then when you pay your 90%, that's usually 30, 60 days after this contract signing. That's when your monthly fees will start and you are able to move into the community and meet all your neighbors and go to the dining room and do all the fun stuff. Okay, so now I think this is, I am going to say, and this is probably a little biased as the CFO, I think this is the most important piece of what we're talking about. And I think this is the most important thing for you to be looking at. The financial strength of any CCRC is critical to you. You are moving into a community and you could be here for 10, 15, 20 plus years. You need to know that that community is strong enough to financially be there for you when you move into a higher level of care and you really need services. So again, when people move to independent living, they may not necessarily be thinking this way, but oftentimes at the 10, 15 year mark, people are needing extra services and you want to make sure that this community that you've moved into is financially strong. So here I am, I want to tell you about Kendal and Hudson. So I usually like to ask this question when we're live and I can see how many people raise their hands. But I'm wondering how many people know what Fitch Ratings is. But don't raise your hand, I can't see it. So what Fitch is it's a rating agency just like Standard & Poor's, which I know most people have heard of, or Moody's. Fitch happens to specialize more in the long-term care, senior housing markets. They have a niche market. And they do ratings for us. So the rating is basically a kind of a report card, if you will, that says whether or not this is a strong community. So there are roughly 2,000, not quite 2,000 life plan CCRC communities in the country. Of those 2,000, only 10%, it's not even 10%, frankly, because it's less than 200, have ratings, either with Fitch or with Moody's. And so that means already the fact that we qualify for a rating puts us in the top 10% of communities nationwide. And then we have an investment grade rating, which means that if you were to buy bonds, and I'll talk about that in a second, out in the market, we would be an investment grade. So we are BBB plus with a positive outlook. Back in April of 22, we were refinancing all of our outstanding debt to take advantage of the interest rates that had, that were low. Even though they were starting to rise, we still were able to realize savings. And at that time, we went back to Fitch and we got an updated rating. It came up with a BBB plus with a positive outlook. So there are actually very few CCRC communities in the country that have these types of ratings, and Kendal and Hudson is one of them. So some of the statistics to share with you, and I sort of alluded to this, independent living occupancy. These numbers, by the way, are all as of December 31st, 2022. So independent living occupancy was 95%, which is what I kind of mentioned. Like there's not a lot of apartments available. So you really need to move quickly if you're interested in moving in. The days cash on hand. So I don't know if everybody knows what that is, but it's a ratio or a calculation that basically says, how much money do you have in your checkbook to pay your bills? So if Kendal and Hudson didn't have any other income coming in, we could pay our bills with the money that's in our cash and investments for 926 days. So that's pretty substantial. There's not a lot of organizations or communities that can say that either. And then there is another ratio that we calculate called a debt service coverage ratio. And if you think about it, when you have your home, you have a mortgage, and then in that mortgage, you're paying a principal component and interest. So this is basically a ratio that says, okay, I'm going to look at how much income you have coming in and how many times could you pay the principal and interest on your mortgage. So for Kendal and Hudson, over 3 times. So if we look at our income and our cash available compared to our outflow, our principal and interest, we can pay that more than 3 times over. So why is this important? Again, if you are looking at other communities or any community, like you want to see these types of ratios showing that this is a strong financial organization. One of the things that's a great benefit to us is our affiliation with the Kendal Corporation. So it's an interesting relationship. Nobody owns anybody. Kendal is not responsible for our debts. We are not responsible for Kendal's debts or any of the affiliates' debts. Nobody's responsible for anybody. And yet we work together very closely. Kendal Corporation is more of an advisory arm, if you will, to the operating communities. And the benefit has been really significant for us. We purchase insurance with them. We save a good deal of money with that. We purchase health insurance with them. Actually, we're self-insured for health insurance, which is a big savings for us. All of our retirement plans are run through the Kendal Corporation. That's a huge savings for us. We have a GPO, which is a group purchasing organization. So we leverage the 14 communities in our purchasing in order to get better pricing. So the Kendal Corporation affiliation is very beneficial to us. One thing I wanted to share, because I think maybe it's important. Maybe it's getting less important as we get more and more used to the pandemic. But starting in 2020, when the pandemic started, there were government programs that we could utilize to kind of help us. And we took advantage of everything that we possibly could, with the belief that we didn't know how long this was going to last, what the impact would be. So we did take a Paycheck Protection Program loan of roughly $2 million. And we did receive provider relief payments for 2 years, actually, for about $700,000. And then the most recent thing we've received is we worked with FEMA because there was an emergency declaration, and there were certain expenses that FEMA would cover if they weren't covered by the other 2 programs. And we just recently, in 2022, we received another $700,000 of funding. And why is that important? It's because it helps the organization. It helps all of us. The more money we can leverage through the programs that the government offered, the better it is for our residents and for the future of the organization. Let's see. So just kind of summing it all up, what are you doing? You're purchasing this long-term care insurance policy. You're protecting your assets. You are better predicting your costs. You have the benefit, I think, and this isn't really my forte to speak to, but I think you have the great benefit of moving into a community with socialization. Everything can be done for you. Maintenance comes up, you call them, they come, they fix the drippy faucet. You have transportation, you have wonderful meals. So that is the big, I can't really quantify that for you on the financial side, but that is a huge part of moving into a community that I think is really so valuable. And at the end of the day, our goal is to give you peace of mind. And this is one of the ways that we do it, is by running a really financially strong, financially solid organization. And I know it was kind of quick, but I think that's all we have. So I'm going to stop sharing. And maybe we could do, there's only a few questions. Or maybe we could do some questions and answers.
Sure. Okay, we have Peter Paul. He asks, is the Lifecare free part of your total medical fee for the year only the part that exceeds the allowable medical deduction for your AGI?
Is that in the chat or the Q&A?
Yeah.
Which
That's
is in the chat?
It's in the, well, for me, it says questions and answer, but yeah, you should be able to see that. Do you see it on the bottom on the tabs?
I see it. I just need to read that. Is the Lifecare fee part of your total medical fee for the year? Only that part that exceeds the allowable. Okay, so I think I understand the question. When you itemize deductions on Schedule A of your tax return, the medical component is subject to your adjusted gross income. So what happens is you would put the entirety of the Lifecare fee in that itemized amount to help you get over that 10% of adjusted gross income. So I hope I'm answering your question. But what you do is it is no different than like doctor bills. Like you put all your, you aggregate all your doctor bills and put them together. You itemize that. You're adding this 100% of this Lifecare fee to that as well. And that will well, it depends on your circumstances, that may send you over your 10% of the adjusted gross income. And Peter, if I didn't answer your question, please ask again and I'll try it.
Absolutely. And to our attendees, feel free to raise your hands. And if anything, I can open your mic if that is easier to get some of your questions answered as well. So our second question comes from an anonymous attendee. With whom can my financial advisor talk for an explanation of the fees and the 50% versus the non-refundable contract, etc.?
So Lois, I think we often tag team this depending on the questions. Your marketing team knows a lot about this and they can answer a lot of your questions. And then if and when they get to a point where they feel like, okay, maybe it's gotten too technical, they will pass you off to either myself or I have a director of finance that's very involved too. And either one of us will be happy to spend time answering questions.
Amazing. Then I have Amanda Slattery. A health questionnaire was sent out a while ago. Can this disqualify a person for acceptance into Kendal?
So I'll take a stab at this, and Lois, if you want to add stuff, that would be great. So I think in one of the slides, it sort of talked about the process, and this is an insurance policy, no different in some ways than like a life insurance policy. So when you have a life insurance policy, you have a physical and they get medical information, and they may or may not cover you depending on what the results of the medical are. And honestly, we're no different. We are doing an insurance policy. We're doing an underwriting process from both a financial perspective and a medical perspective, the goal is for you to be able to live in independent living for a certain period of time. And we want to medically make sure that that's feasible. Now, obviously, the medical underwriting can't ever give us a guarantee, but it's a process that we follow. So yes, it is actually, it could be possible that that questionnaire, if you're filling it out, it may disqualify you from moving into independent living. Lois, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I just want to add that, it's a horrible shame that to stay on a wait list for several years and then be denied medically and not have a plan B in place. So because the medical component has become so stringent, we felt that it was the right thing to do to help people see where they stand medically while they're on the wait list, so that if we know for sure that it's not going to pan out, they can make other arrangements for their retirement and not have to, wait until they actually go through the formal process. So we think that this is beneficial all the way around.
Okay, great.
One of the
Next
things,
question.
before you go on, Lydia, I'll just say
Sure.
it, and you may have already heard this, but mostly, when you ask someone who's moved into a community, what would they have done different? One of the things they say is they would have moved in earlier. Once they realize what the value and the benefit is of living in a community like this, I used to liken it to college. It always had that feel of like living on a college campus where you have this great group of friends, you meet all these interesting people, you have all these interesting activities. So that's how I would explain it to people who didn't know what I did for a living. But that is the one regret people share with us, is that they wish they had moved in faster because the benefits are really so good for them.
That is so
Excellent.
well said, Jean. And all too often I hear people, especially people on the wait list, that say, oh yeah, when something happens, I'll call you. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
We are the before it happens type of community, not after it happens. So, but yeah, what you said is definitely spot on.
Okay, great. Let's go to our next question. I have Gabby. She says, Jean says that there are a few empty apartments now. Does that mean that one would join before you finish building?
Gabby, I'm sorry if I confused the situation. We are completely built out. So when I shared that we're at 95% occupancy, that's in our existing independent living buildings. So that's it. That's what we have to work with. So and I don't want you to all think I'm here to sell you or anything, because I'm honestly not. What I really want to share with you is, like, there's only a few apartments right now. So if you want to move in, like, you do need to move in rather quickly. Lots of people want to wait for their particular unit. No, I want this unit looking at this tree. Or, so that might not be the best way to approach this right now. So I hope that wasn't misleading. We are completely built out at this point.
Okay, great. Alice Thurston, must someone with repurchased LTC also buy Lifecare? If not, how it is determined that the pre-purchase LTC is adequate?
So Alice, I hope I can try to answer this question. So the only contract we offer right now includes the Lifecare component. So if you want to move into Kendal, like that's the contract you have to purchase. So that's what you're doing. You're purchasing that long-term care. Some people, and maybe this is yourself, have another long-term care policy or a long-term care policy that you bought years ago that you've probably been paying premiums on, or some people it comes through their retirement benefits, but you may have a long-term care policy, I'll say on the side. That long-term care policy can be supplemental to you if you go into any of our healthcare neighborhoods and help offset some costs that you're incurring. While our costs don't go up, just because you've moved into a healthcare neighborhood, you may have the opportunity to reimburse yourself through your long-term care policy. It's complicated. So that's why we always say we want to, you have to look at each individual person's policy, because every policy is different and every policy covers different things. So I'm sorry that's a little vague, but that's the best I can do at the moment. If you have financial advisors, by the way, they can do this for you. They can look at your long-term care policies and tell you what's covered. They can do a nice summary for you. And then we can look at that compared to what we do here, and you can understand better how that might reimburse you or reimburse your family if you're incurring costs in the healthcare neighborhoods.
Yeah, I'd like to share that you do, the thing about Kendal is you do not need long-term care insurance to move here because that's part of what you're getting. And you're fully covered. And when you do have long-term care insurance, there's a great way to blend it with the existing program. Like Jean said, for maybe a home health aide for that crave period of time in your apartment, and for reimbursement at a later time while you're in long-term care. But it doesn't hurt if you have it, and it certainly does not hurt if you don't.
That's sort of, I'm going to jump on this next question from Susan, because that sort of segues into what Lois was just saying. So the full indemnity medical policy. So we actually do require everyone to have both Medicare and a supplemental insurance for their medical needs. But that's part of the requirement of moving into a Lifecare community. So it does not offset any of the fees, the entrance fees that we charge. Again, there's different types of contracts out there in the world with Lifecare communities. So what we do is called a type A contract, and it is the full Lifecare contract. And it's the most comprehensive in the sense that you don't incur extra fees as you move through the continuum of care. In other types of contracts, there's types B's and C's, and I don't want to get you bored or overwhelmed with all the different types of contracts out there. But some contracts are fee for service, meaning as you go through the continuum of care, you're going to pay additional fees. So there's higher fees in assisted living and memory care and skilled nursing than there are in independent living. And that is not the type of contract that we offer. We offer a very comprehensive type A contract that really covers all of those care costs in assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. There are always a few costs that are not covered by our policy, such as like pharmacy and medical supplies, but the care provided by the nurses, all of that is built into the contract that we're providing.
Okay, great. So the following question we have is from Carol. What medical conditions might keep someone from being accepted as a resident at Kendal?
Oh, well, there's a few ways to answer that question, but I'll say that the really big red flags is dementia, and it's mild cognitive impairment. Anything that's involved with that is something that would deny residency. The others include Parkinson's, MS, COPD, congestive heart failure, active cancer, kidney disease, especially with the treatment of dialysis. So those are the big ones. ALS, of course. And then there's times where people might have several different issues that together create a red flag. That's what we call them, are the red flags. So those are the primary.
Okay, great. Following question we have here.
For,
From Rosa.
Gabby, we answered her question and then she said, no, I didn't mean it. I'm so sorry.
No,
I wish I had seen that
late.
before. I apologize.
Next question, Rosa Smith. What is the average length of stay for people who are in independent living apartments?
Rosa, I'm so glad you asked that because I wrote down some of the statistics and then I was like, no, I'm not going to tell people, but I'm going to tell you now. So average length of stay, well, let me back up a minute. So the average age of move-in is 80. The average age of our independent living population is 85. There's about the split between male and female. There's 70% female in independent living versus 30% male. And then I wanted to share with you that our oldest residents in independent living are 103, and we have 2 of them. Our oldest resident on campus right now is 104. So the average length of stay in independent living is about, it can range between 8 and 13 years. There's some components to it. So if you come in as a couple, typically the couple will live longer than somebody who's coming in as single. And then it really, so much of it depends on the age that somebody moves in. So when you're moving in and, you know, our average age of move-in is 80, but we have people moving in their 70s. We also have people moving in their 90s. So that's why I'm giving you kind of a broad range of between 8 and 13 years, but that is the average in independent living.
That's phenomenal. Following question, this is anonymous attendee. Lifecare add-on to base entry fee is about $250,000 for a couple. You said deductible amount is $319, right? I don't know. 319, right? I'm confused about the distinction between these 2 amounts. Why is this amount the amount that's deductible?
I'm so glad you asked that question because this is we're actually talking about 2 different deductions. So I really am glad that you've asked and I have an opportunity to clarify. So I'm going to use the $250,000. That's a one-time only deduction the year that it's paid that you itemize on Schedule A of your tax return. It does not continue every year. So it's one time only. In addition to that, though, you have a component of your monthly service fee that is deductible. So kind of make a simple example. If you moved in on January 1st and paid the $250, that would be itemized on Schedule A. And also, if you had 2 people, you'd itemize the additional $31,900 on Schedule A. Now, let's say it's the following year. The following year, you only are going to itemize the $31,900 or whatever its equivalent is for the following year. So I hope that kind of clarified and cleared that up. Thank you for asking. And if it didn't, please ask again, because some of this can get complicated.
Absolutely. And always feel free, like we said, you know, you're going to be able to send all your questions and email. We're also going to be recording this webinar and sharing it as we typically do and sending out a link. Our following question is from Larry Clark. Talk about the medical requirements for entrance. Can a person move into independent living and the partner move into nursing care? Can they live together?
I'll take a stab at it and then Lois will back me up and give you all the real information that I forgot. But yes, a person can move into independent living and then have, if they have a spouse or a significant other partner who doesn't qualify, we have a separate contract that allows the one person to move to independent living. The second person can move where it's appropriate. So depending on the specific situation, that may be independent living. It may be independent living with some assistance. It may be assisted living, memory care, or skilled nursing. So it's very case specific. And there's, we ask for some agreements where we help to analyze what the second person might need in order to be safe. You know, it's all about safety. So in order for someone to be safe, we may say, okay, you need assistance when you're not there, like you might need an aide, or no, this person might need to go directly into assisted living. So it will depend on the specific circumstances, but there is a way to do it. we do have a contract that we will talk through with you based on your specifics that will allow that.
Amazing.
Yeah, at the initial move-in, both applicants, both spouses need to be medically approved. So, you know, if over time one needs some form of long-term care, they can certainly receive that, and the other spouse stays in the apartment. And, you know, that really is the beauty of how this whole program works, is that couples are not going to age at the same pace. And one will age quicker than the other. And whoever needs that 24-hour care will receive it in the same building, under the same roof as the spouse who is remaining in the apartment. So you get to still enjoy programming together. You can have meals together. You know, you don't have to worry about somebody driving you to visit your spouse. You don't have to worry if it's snowing. You're here, and that's what makes it so wonderful.
Great. This is actually one of my favorite questions. Does the Lifecare fee cover doctor bills, Medicare supplement, prescription, drug costs, etc.?
So the short answer is no, it does not. The what you're paying for Lifecare is you're paying for the healthcare neighborhoods and the nursing care, nursing. When we say nursing, we're talking about our certified nursing assistants who help residents with the activities of daily living, as well as LPNs and RNs who are helping with medications or IVs or whatever the specific situation calls for. So the separate doctor bills and Medicare, Medicare supplement, prescription drugs, all of that is covered by your other medical insurance. So I think I alluded to this or said this earlier. We do require a Medicare policy and a supplemental policy because that's how you pay for your doctor bills and your prescription drug costs. So all of that is required in addition to the Lifecare contract.
Okay, great. So following question is, if a resident needs some help but is still independent living, does Kendal provide helpers? And if so, is there a fee?
So we can help assist you getting you in contact with home health providers, but that is your own expense. If you are in your independent living apartment, we are not providing assistance to you as part of your monthly fee or your cost. It's all of that is in addition to what you're paying for. So we help facilitate, if you will. We can give you, because it's not easy to find home health aides nowadays. They're in high demand. So we have some agencies that we can recommend to you that we trust and that we have worked with other residents here, so we can help facilitate that, but you have to pay for that on your own.
Okay, great. Following question is from Jane Cohn. May my financial advisor pursue technical financial questions with Kendal?
Absolutely, Jane. If there are questions, I ask that you go through the marketing department. They know a great deal about what the financial aspects of the contracts are. And if there's anything that they feel like they can't answer, they will shift it over to myself or the director of finance, and we will assist with that.
Excellent. Following question is, my union, UFT, is trying to force retirees into a modified advantage care plan. Can Kendal work with that?
I hate this question because I have to say no. I wish we could work with that. It's really challenging with the Advantage plan. So the way that it's working is that Medicare Advantage plan signs a contract with a provider, and that is their provider that you would have to go to. They are not interested in signing contracts with us. We're small. We're not big enough for them to work with. So it's not something that they are willing to do. So because we don't have a contract, they won't pay us if you come back here. We do have a provision if this is what you really want. where you could pay us, and it can get quite expensive. So, I mean, we'd have to talk that through. But I think what you should know is if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, the likelihood is that you would have to go to a different skilled nursing facility for the period of time when you were receiving skilled nursing benefits. And I feel like maybe I need to back up. I'm looking at Lois for guidance here to explain a little bit better. So,
Well, yeah, I know this is
It's-
it's a tough one because insurance doesn't work the same way in a nursing home like it does in a hospital.
Yeah.
So hospitals readily can take Advantage plans because they are so big and so widespread in the way they are today in the world. But and it's not only Kendal, it's all nursing homes are having challenges with the Advantage plans. And it seems like more and more places are pushing people into these Advantage plans, which is creating, some difficulty. But your supplemental insurance takes care of like any physical therapy that you get in the nursing home, because that's not, the nursing home offers nursing home care. It doesn't offer physical therapy. So having that supplemental insurance policy is what keeps you in the clear of all these big bills that might be accumulated. And when you have an Advantage plan, you can't bill that physical therapy to the Advantage plan. So that's the issue today. We do, when people come in and apply, one of the first things I like to do is copy the insurance cards and send them over to our finance department to get a closer look at your insurance coverage. So we can look right up front, is this something that we're going to be able to handle, or is this something that we have to look closer at? So we don't leave it to chance or for last minute.
Right. Oh, keep going, sorry.
So our following question is from Christopher Hollowell. How does one navigate the situation whereby an applicant can afford Kendal until his or her present dwelling is sold?
So that's actually not uncommon. We have ways to work with that. So we do that more on a case-to-case basis. So when you're talking to marketing, make that known upfront, that's going to be something that you're going to do or need to do in order to move in, and they can walk through the alternatives for you.
Perfect. Peter Pohl, is the monthly fee deductible portion also limited by being over 10% of AGI, adjusted gross income?
You got it. Yes. So these are the IRS regulations. All medical expenses are impacted. They have to exceed the adjusted gross income by a certain percentage. So I'm not a tax expert, and I don't give tax advice, nor should you shouldn't want me to give it to you. But whatever your adjusted gross income percentage is, sometimes in the older days it was like 7.5%. Now it's 10%, and I still think there might be certain age brackets where it's 7.5%. But using 10%, which is I think now the more common, you still have to exceed that 10% of adjusted gross income to take advantage of the itemized deductions. Otherwise, you just do your standard deduction, and that gets you the better tax impact.
Amazing. Following question is from Jenny Ullman. How far in advance of an anticipated move-in can one sign a contract? She's 58 now and eager to start planning ahead.
I want to meet you.
Oh, I love that enthusiasm.
Hi, Jenny.
I think the answer is get on the wait list. Get on the wait list. You can't sign a contract now, but get on the wait list so you have a timestamp of when your interest began, and that puts you in a good position when it comes time for apartment selection.
Excellent. Next question is from Joel Epstein. Does independent living provide 3 meals a day? If not, can you purchase groceries on site, or can you buy additional meals?
So this is a really interesting question to me. Our contract provides 1 meal a day in independent living, 3 meals a day if you're in any of the healthcare neighborhoods. So the reason I'm interested is because what we're seeing with a lot of people is they want more flexibility. So they're not even necessarily wanting the 1 meal a day. They want different options. So no, we don't do 3 meals a day. You can eat 3 meals a day here though. We do have breakfast, we have lunch, and we have dinner. There's a limited, right now, there's like limited groceries on site. So there's like milk and bread and like cold cuts that you can purchase. And then what a great many of our residents do, and this started particularly during COVID, is they're getting their groceries delivered through, was like a Fresh Direct. I'm trying to remember what some of the other ones are, but a lot of them are like, I'll get my groceries delivered. We have transportation that goes to grocery stores every week. So if that's something that, you wanted to go and shop for your own food, you can do that. You can buy limited groceries here. You can have them delivered. So there's a lot of options for you.
Awesome. The following question is from an anonymous attendee, but I guess they need a little clarification. Lois said both partners need to be eligible for independent living. Jean said that there's a type of contract to cover one partner in independent living and another in, if they needed assisted living or higher care. So I guess they wanted more clarification to that.
The contracts, yeah. So you can't, both parties occupying an independent living apartment both have to be medically approved. So there was a time, and maybe that's the confusion. There was a time where when you are medically approved, you are considered a contract holder. So we used to have this terminology that we could have a contract holder and a non-contract holder occupying the same independent living apartment. That has changed. And folks, I'll tell you, long-term care is changing. The whole healthcare arena is changing. There's been multiple articles in the New York Times talking about the people trying to age in place are not able to find help. There are fewer and fewer nursing homes that they're consolidating, they're closing. I mean, it's a tough thing now, and with the baby boomers entering the big retirement arena, it's even making it harder. So we've had to change some of our medical clearance policies, and that's one of them. Yeah, maybe 2 years ago you could have had a contract holder, non-contract holder in an apartment, but you just can't. We can't do that right now.
My apologies for any confusion. I obviously was not up to speed on the change, so my apologies.
So yeah, so and because it happens quickly. Keeping up with this is not the easiest either. The other thing is, people are living longer. We have folks here age 103, and the whole idea is there's a whole math component behind a Lifecare community about how many assisted living apartments do we need? How many skilled nursing do we need? We have 222 independent living apartments. We have to be able to care long-term for people that move in here. And because people are living longer and occupying long-term care space longer, we have to be very diligent about who's moving in and how quickly is it predicted that they would need that long-term care. So just like Jean answered, people living 8 to 13 years, I believe it was, in independent living, and how many years, 2 years in assisted, 2 years in memory care, 2 years in skilled. Well, right now, those numbers are going to be going up. And we don't want to tell you, well, guess what? We have no space. We have to put you somewhere else. I mean, that is, when you move into Kendal, that is something you do not want to hear. So they're tough decisions to make, but we have to make them.
Okay, great. Following question is, how do you know if you have a mild cognitive impairment?
That would be found on two ways. One, that would be found on the doctor's report. Doctors put everything in the notes. If they offered you a medication and you refuse to take it, believe me, it's in the notes. And we get a full medical overview. And there is a diagnosis called mild cognitive impairment. The other thing is when you do have the medical evaluation here at Kendal, you do take a cognitive test, and mild cognitive impairment would show up on that too.
Okay, great. Alice Thurston, please explain the healthcare neighborhood.
Oh, that's my language. So, you know, language is so important, right? Like how we refer to people and places. So we've used the word nursing home several times, but we don't like it. So we refer to the healthcare sections of our community as neighborhoods because they're neighborhoods. They're little sections with an assisted living neighborhood, and it has a name. It's called Adirondack, and we have a memory care neighborhood called Sunnyside, and we have our long-term care skilled nursing neighborhood called Clearwater. So that's what I'm talking about when I refer to the neighborhoods. It's a nice way to think about our friends and residents who are living there.
Absolutely. Following question is from Jenny. Oh, I'm getting dry. I also missed what would trigger a refund if one chose the 50% refundable contract option.
Sure. So the refund happens when the contract is terminated, and there's only two ways to terminate a contract. So one is you move out, and one is people pass away. So sorry to say that. When the contract is terminated, there is an entrance fee refund due if you have a refundable contract for the residential component, and that is paid either it's paid no later than 1 year after the contract's done. It can be paid earlier because if your original independent living unit sold, is paid within 30 days of that. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you moved in 10 years ago. No, let's say 15 years ago, and you lived in independent living for 10 years, and now you moved to assisted living, and your independent living apartment sold because you're no longer in it. You're living over in assisted living. In that case, your refund would be paid 30 days after you pass away, and it's paid to your estate. We have a form where you tell us like how to make that refund payable, so we can pay it to the estate, the trust, to specific people, whatever your instructions are, we do that. But let's say that you lived in independent living for 15 years and you never moved to a healthcare neighborhood, and then you pass away, then we have to sell your independent living apartment before the refund is triggered. At no time will it ever go past 1 year. So there's a year guarantee, if you will, on the refundable portion being paid to your estate. I hope that cleared that up.
Yep, very well explained. Following question, confused about the distinction in, is it a matter of timing?
I'm not sure what that question is. If it's referring to the refund, I think we've answered it, but if we're not answering your question, please maybe submit it again or raise your hand.
Yeah, and we'll open up the mic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll take the next one. The wait list is not a full application. There is some financial data, very basic, and there is a medical history questionnaire that that gives us our starting point together. The formal applications come into play when you select an apartment. And then I guess I'll go to the next one too. Speak more about active cancer exclusion. So active cancer is one that you're in treatment for currently, or one that you've just completed treatment and we don't have the opportunity to get the prognosis from your doctor. So the medical definitions, not the medical definitions, but the whole process is about diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis. So if something is active, like if there's an active cancer actively being treated, or the treatment is stopped and you don't have your prognosis, that's all considered under active.
Okay, so you want me to go to the following question? Can one person of a couple use the dinner credits of the other person if they've used all of their own?
So it's an interesting question too. Currently, no, because the way that the meal plan is working is it's 1 meal per person per day. We do have an alternative meal plan option right now. It's like 25 meals a month. So you can choose that, and you get basically a credit for the raw food cost based on the number of days in the month. We're looking at sort of more of a points plan to provide some flexibility for people, and that'll be a great question that we'll have to ask. Does the points plan go by person or does it go by couple? So I don't have the answer to that question for what the future holds. But I'm really glad you asked it, because I will bring it to the table and make sure we think that through and how that would work.
Perfect. Next question is from Ralph Linsker. I've read the Kendal literature that if one leaves after a short time, a non-refundable contract does refund an amount reduced by 2% per month. So is it truly non-refundable after 4 years?
Oh my goodness, Ralph. I thank you for asking. Yes. I didn't want to go into all the nitty-gritty details in the presentation because it's complicated, but yes, even the non-refundable contract has some refund provisions in the legal language, and also the regulations of the state of New York require this, where it sort of, we use the word, it amortizes. So it decreases the refund, potentially the refund decreases over time. So the Lifecare component has that, and the residential component. So after 4 years, though, if you have a non-refundable contract, there's no refund that's due or payable. So I hope that, yes, you're totally right. You've got it. And thank you for asking. So I hope that does answer your question. It's hard to talk about some of the nitty-gritty details like that in this type of seminar, because I can't see faces and I can't tell if people are following what I'm saying. So I appreciate that you asked the question.
Amazing. All right. And I think we're almost down to our last question. Susan Gottsman would like to know, how much money does an 80-year-old woman need to have in order to be able to move into Kendal?
That's Susan, I wish I had a formula for you. I think that what would be beneficial is using that financial calculator that marketing has access to, because there's so many variables to it. It depends on the type of unit that you're looking at. It depends on the contract type that you're looking at. It depends on your other expenses, that you have. Some people maintain their residence here and then have, houses in different places where they're going to visit. So all of that has to come into the equation for us to understand the financial viability. So it's not an easy question for me to answer, but with the help of Lois and Mary Kate, who you don't know, but with the help of the marketing team, they can actually do a very high level calculation and kind of get you that comfort level of whether or not it's something that you should pursue.
Correct.
Absolutely.
We do have a try it calculator on our website under the pricing tab. I'll include that in our follow-up email. So this way, if you want to, you can complete that calculator, and then a sales counselor will reach out to you and do an exact overview of your finances and look at your options with Kendal. Did you
And
want
I
to add
guess I'll
anything else
wrap
to
up
it?
the last one. So, doesn't everybody have some sort of cognitive impairment in the aging process? Absolutely. I think mine started when I was 35. I don't know, right? Yeah, you know, believe it or not, mild cognitive impairment is a diagnosis. And it's all there's various tests, cognitive tests that you can take, and there's a scoring range. It all comes under, the big umbrella is dementia, and under dementia is Alzheimer's, and I just learned a new one, Lewy, I think it's called Lewy Bar, is another form of dementia. It takes all different shapes, and it comes in all different levels. But yeah, mild cognitive impairment is definitely a progressive diagnosis. Yeah. So, wow,
Great.
Jean, you did a fabulous job, and you, Lydia, this
Thank
was
you.
great. We went
It
through
was.
32 questions and a wonderful presentation.
Thank you all for your attention and for your questions and follow-up. It makes the presentation that much better for everybody who's listening. I really do appreciate it. And I
So quick
appreciate your
question.
time today.
Quick question for you. Early on, there were some questions that were coming in, and someone had mentioned the monthly service numbers. It went a little bit too fast for them. So I said, of course, we're going to record it and share the webinar. But is there some material, like, I don't know, do we typically like share a copy maybe of the presentation or any of the information that was provided during the webinar?
I don't think we usually share that, but the price, isn't the pricing on the fee sheets? Like, is that online?
The pricing is on the fee sheets
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just didn't.
That's okay.
wanted
The range is between 4,600 to 9,500 on single occupancy. And as I mentioned, it's incredibly specific based on the type of unit that you're occupying, as well as the type of contract that you choose. So again, there's some variables to that.
So
Perfect.
Lydia, why don't you wrap it up to our wonderful guests, what they can expect after we log off today?
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for attending. We had an amazing turnout. Information was great. We will follow up with the link so that you can view the webinar at a later time. We're also going to provide a contact. So if you have any questions, you're going to be reaching out to Mary Kate, and she will have those questions answered for you. A great and amazing time. And thank you everyone for coming on.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.